Hello again YouTube, Mr. Smith 870 here with another Beretta video. This video is mostly going to focus on how to maintain your Beretta 92 or M9. This mostly focuses any Beretta, so let's just jump right into it. The Beretta itself is actually a very reliable handgun due to its following locking block design, as you can see here. And let me cut on my light so you can see a little bit better. The reason why this design is actually very reliable is compared to most tilting barrels, they have a very long feed ramp. As you can see on the Beretta, the feed ramp is very minimal, and also the barrel moves in a complete horizontal motion. That is actually very reliable compared to a tilting barrel, rotating barrel, or anything else. The problem is with the Beretta is most users do not maintain it properly or do not replace worn parts. So let's get right into it. Let me remove the barrel off. Now for basic maintenance, all you need to do is keep it lubed. Berettas do need to be lubricated. This is not a Glock or anything else. You have to keep lube on it. Basically all you need is just regular CLP is what I use. You can use pretty much whatever. Some people like grease. I think it's overkill. Your mileage may vary. But all you need to do is take a Q-tip saturated with CLP, and you need to put lube here on the frame rails, also inside here and on this side. This area needs to be pretty lubricated well. On the rear slide rails, I like to put a couple drops on the barrel rails, also on the locking block, and on this side. And finally, just some lube on the slide rails and the locking block channel inside the slide. And also right here, I'll move it on a drop of oil on the safety decocking levers. Just put a drop in there and work them, and they'll work them right in. As far as lubrication, that's all you need for the Beretta. Like I said, it does like to be ran a little wet compared to other designs, but that's all you need to do, and that will do it. Next is mostly long-term maintenance. You basically have a few things that will need to be replaced. Let's go right into the most important thing, the recoil spring. Recoil spring replacement is beyond importance on a high round Beretta. I recommend changing every 3,000 to 5,000 rounds. You can get a factory 13-pound recoil spring, which is factory weight for the Beretta 92 at Brownells Midway for roughly $2. Very cheap. You can go aftermarket. I would still recommend staying with the 13-pound, maybe a 14-pound recoil spring. You don't need an overly heavy or overly light one because you get into cycling problems. But this should always be replaced. Very paramount it's being replaced. While I have one out, I use the plastic guide rods. There is a huge debate whether the plastic is better or worse than steel or vice versa. In my opinion, it is vastly superior to steel for several reasons. Main reason is, as you can see, it has these grooves in it. If you get debris such as dirt, sand, what have you inside your Beretta, it will go in these grooves. The steel ones are completely round and you keep them inside. Also, it's self-lubricating because it's made of plastic. Don't have to worry about rusting or anything else. And most importantly, if this breaks or bends, what it does is, if it'll break, it will shoot down to the end of the barrel. End of the frame. Your pistol will still continue to work. If a steel one bends or breaks, you're going to have a Beretta that's not working on you. That's the main advantage to me, is if this breaks, my Beretta will still work. Steel, not so much. Plus they don't exactly just break. This is still durable as all get out. We all know plastic works. You can look at the Glock and the M&P for that. I don't really recommend spending money on steel because it's really just not needed. This is actually superior, and it's cheaper also. This is roughly $2 compared to a $20 guy rod. But that's preference. I don't recommend it. But replacing your recoil spring, vastly important. That's one of the #1 things you need to look out for. The next thing you need to look out for is right down there, the trigger spring. Early Beretta trigger springs were known breakage items, and I have two right here. Now the one on the right I'll try to put them together. It's a little hard to tell. Is actually a much thinner spring. It's much smaller too. This is an earlier Beretta 92 recoil, trigger spring. These were high breakage items. Beretta redesigned it a few years ago where it's much thicker and lasts much longer. I recommend changing these out at roughly every 5,000 dry fires or 5,000 shots. If they're doing mostly single action dry fire, you could probably get away with more, but this is a very important thing to keep your eye on. They don't just break all the time, but they can and will break eventually. You can also replace it with a Wolf trigger conversion unit. The problem with the Wolf TCU is you have to have a metal trigger. This has a metal coated plastic trigger, which is standard in all the Berettas. So you're looking at a replacement of $40 for that. And also the Wolf trigger spring itself is $20. You can buy 10 of these for the same price and they'll work just as fine. But keep a couple of these on hand. You don't really have to worry about them breaking. Next thing you need to replace every 5,000 rounds is right here. This is the trigger bar spring. You can see it in action right there. This does need to be replaced every 5,000 rounds. If you also have a issue with your Beretta with the trigger bar not resetting the trigger, that spring may have got out of place. Not an issue if you had the grips on, but it can theoretically happen. I've never had it happen, never really seen it happen unless there was a major malfunction. But replace this spring every 5,000 rounds. And lastly, you can't really see it, and I don't feel like taking off the slide stop, but that little spring right there, the slide stop spring, 5,000 rounds. All you gotta do is remove it out, take it out. It's a $2 spring, like most every Beretta spring, every 5,000 rounds. So basically every 5,000 rounds you need to replace your recoil spring, trigger spring, your trigger bar spring, and the slide stop spring. That may cost you $8 in replacement parts. Now the only other thing that can generally come to a malfunction will be your magazine springs, which I've already touched into another video. If you're having feeding problems with, it's probably your magazine spring. If it's lubed and all your parts are correct, replace the magazine spring. But that's pretty much all the problems you'll ever really run into with a Beretta. Now on the internet, everybody will tell you the locking block will break all the time. They break constantly and all this. No, actually they don't. This is a current number 5. These are actually rated for 30,000 rounds before breakage now. Earlier ones did break. These I've never actually seen one in person with all the Berettas, and I've owned many Berettas over the years and never have actually seen one break. If it does end up breaking, it's roughly a $30 part, but like I said, 30,000 rounds are engineered for now. I wouldn't worry about it. If you want to keep one, spare one, that's fine. Still a good idea to inspect it, make sure there's no cracks, but it's really blown out of proportion. And one thing a lot of people do not like to mention is, compared to a Browning recoil system, if your locking block breaks, it's $30 to replace it. Most other systems, if it's like a CZ75 or high power where it locks into the slide, you have a slider being replaced. Much better to punch out this pin and spend 30 bucks and use slide. So that is vastly overstated on the internet. You really don't have to worry about your locking block. Like I said, 30,000 rounds, $30 part, easy to replace, knock out a pin, bada bing, bada boom. But otherwise, to keep your Beretta running, just keep it lubed. Make sure you're using good quality magazines with a good quality magazine spring, and replace the trigger spring, trigger bar spring, slide stop spring, and the recoil spring every 5,000 rounds, and your Beretta will last you for a lifetime. Hope it's been informative. If you have any more questions, send them to me. I ask them the best of my abilities. Thank you.